Okay. Excellent. All right. Okay, now a few minutes past 7. I'm calling tonight's meeting of the Zoning Board of Appeals to order. We have a few administrative items to start with, but first I want to welcome our 2 new members, JT and Deb. I will not call on you to give any words, but thank you for joining the board. If at any point you have questions, please don't hesitate to ask. Michael is an invaluable resource, so I will start with him rather than one of us.
Before you go on, I just want to say something.
Sure.
You know, I mean, I know it's not on the agenda, but as long as you welcome, the 2 new members. I know both members. I certainly don't have any problem with their ability to be on the zoning board. I am pissed because I have been an associate member of this board for 5 years, and I have not been appointed. I applied for the appointment for this board, and I should have been appointed. And again, it doesn't have anything to do with you, Deb, or you, JT. But I wasn't even called before. I wasn't even called before the select board for an interview, and I think that's pretty poor procedurally too. I should at least have the opportunity to meet with the board. I don't know what the process was. I didn't even know about this until until I found out a few minutes ago. This appointment, and I just want to say that this is absurd. It really is, and it's not a reflection of you people. It's not a reflection of anybody on this board. But this has just gotten to be outrageous. That's what I want to say.
All right. Okay. One thing also just to make you guys aware is one of the things I instituted starting, I think it was last year, specifically with our associate, because of our associate members and having been an associate member myself, is that typically every so often on certain hearings, we'll ask for one of the voting members essentially to not participate so that we can have our associate members, participate. So there might come a time where I ask for volunteers. So just, obviously let me know. All right, with that,
I want to bring up actually just speaking on is whether or not there's a conflict of interest.
Right. So I thought about this, and I did talk about it with Michael. What I would suggest. So while both of you serve on different boards, obviously the select board and the planning board, my suggestion, my presumption is that that your participation, at whatever matters come before the zoning board we will start from the presumption that there is no conflict, and frankly, the onus will be on you two to bring up any particular issues that might arise. My biggest concern probably is on the planning board. That's the most likely one where a matter could theoretically be before the planning board and here possibly
at the same time,
or at least there's a relationship. My suggestion is, I'm always more of a conservative bent, which is if there's ever a moment where you see a similar address nearby, whatever the situation is, talk to Michael and Valerie off the bat and bring it to their attention. Frankly, from my perspective, I'm always of the inclination that if there's even an appearance of a conflict of interest, I would much rather that the individual recuse themselves rather than going through whatever machinations we feel to be comfortable with. It's the safest, especially when we have associate members who are willing to be able to take over.
and to that point, my plan is to lean on Valerie and Michael to say, it's getting gray.
That's right.
It's getting wiggly.
Yeah,
so,
I'd rather get out in front of it. And frankly, there also could be situations in reverse where you're going to have to talk to folks on the planning side, there. There is.
Can I just interrupt on this one?
Sure.
Because you mentioned about being on 2 different boards.
Yeah.
Well, I'm an associate anyway, so it won't matter in this particular case, assuming everybody that's per member votes on this issue. But I am on the board of assessors, and this is a matter that's coming up. I would think before the board of assessors. So I think I can speak on it. But I don't think I should vote on this issue anyway.
No. I'm glad you brought that up. It's funny because once you got onto the board of assessors, I had thought about it, but your issues tend to be a little bit. I mean, if the likelihood that there would be a conflict, I think, was less there because your issues are.
It's a different issue.
There really are, but it's worth noting, and especially there was, I believe, 2 pieces of correspondence from the board of assessors, as part of this as well.
Yeah.
But anyways, I think it's just a reminder for all of us to just take the initiative, be up in front about these particular matters. I would frankly give the advice of saying, even if it's not a formal matter on the agenda, it's, you know, on agenda for the village boards where something's gonna get actually voted on, like, even to the point of like, we've received correspondence about X, which probably does happen in front of the select board all the time, where you guys get correspondence about everything, whether or not you act on it or not, you know, is a whole different matter. But if, for example, there was a matter that's before the zoning board and a piece of correspondence gets sent to the select board and it gets discussed or whatever, I would just note it to Michael and we'll deal with it, you know, as it comes. And, you know, we'll just have to take this sort of step by step, but it's definitely something that I've thought about as well.
So I saw it on the other side, I was thinking the select board, just from the point of it's the select board appointing the board, and then because you are the chair, like even if recusing from that dynamic, that seems like essentially, like the select board can choose the board, but I had, like, it felt like an awkward dynamic there of like, I think the rotation.
True, there has been precedent though that's been set.
There has, okay.
On the ZBA where we've had select board members in the past.
Okay, that would be, yeah, so seeing that would help me feel better.
Jack Layton.
Yeah.
For
And the same,
years.
and the same with the
And-
planning board, Mark Jones was both, so,
Right,
you know, neither of us are breaking ground here.
right.
Yeah. I think it was much more the chair dynamic there.
Yeah.
With
That is true, our chair rotates every year,
okay,
and it just, I ended up
okay,
in it at this point in
so
time.
it must have happened.
Right, and it came about, because I was on capital planning.
Okay.
And, our new board member, who had been the chair of FinCom, is now a select board member.
Okay.
And it just made more sense for him
Okay,
to be a representative. So I then was not,
got it.
on any board other than the select board.
Yeah, that history is very helpful.
Yeah.
But yeah.
And then I'm licensed unrestricted construction supervisor for over 35 years.
Yeah, yeah,
Have been involved in numerous projects from millions of dollars to
yeah.
simple deck repair, etc. And I felt that with that experience and dealing with different zoning boards and planning boards actually in other townships and municipalities, I thought this just made some sense.
No, I think it was, and largely also even just the times, like the balance of power. I think it just came.
No, I mean, look, like, I did, you know, I can certainly come up and I've certainly thought, like I said, I've thought through this since the appointments, you know, of different hypotheticals where, you know, I can imagine, yes, there could be a conflict, there could be a situation where we're gonna have to deal with it. And I think we're just gonna have to, you know, deal with it as they come in. You know, in an ideal situation, we're not gonna have to, but I think as long as we're aware of it. And like, I would encourage, not that I'm trying to, you know, to necessarily like nitpick, but to the extent that any individual, whether it be Michael, whether it be the three of us, you know, or Lenny, if for some reason we, you know, believe that there's a situation where there could be a conflict and you guys hadn't raised it up, I would encourage anyone just to kind of bring it up, because I'd rather flush it out ahead of time than in the middle of a hearing, we have an applicant who starts, you know, making an argument, and now that could become, you know, very concerning. My goal is for, sorry, Lenny, I apologize. My goal is that any decision that we have, you know, whether someone agrees with the decision or not, is separate from, was there a bias? Was there a conflict? Even in an appearance of it. And so if we need to work through it, depending on how it is, we'll deal with it as we come.
Yeah, just to this point, I mean, obviously I won't have to vote on this forever anyway, but I mean, what about in terms of speaking on it? I mean, does that create a conflict, do you think?
So realistically, if it's not currently an application before another board that you're on, there's not going to be a conflict of interest with it. If you are on this hearing and then another application is brought up to another board, you would either need to recuse yourself from that board or recuse yourself from this board. Because you'd be getting information on the subject property in two different ways.
Well, it was an application, but the issue will be, you know, to Kristen's letter, we may have to decide on whether or not, they owe any back taxes.
So
yeah,
Oh, I'm sorry.
you know,
I don't wanna speak right now to this application, but there are many examples of other boards getting involved with things that come before the ZBA.
Yeah.
Such as the Conservation Commission and others. So whatever choice comes of the assessing department doesn't necessarily impact us in this rendering of a decision unless an applicant files something in another capacity with the board of assessors.
I guess the one thing I would say, Lane, too, is this is also, it's like, who's first? And so in this particular situation, we're first.
Yeah.
So to be perfectly honest, I think you're fine for this evening and you're fine for this particular application. If something happens in front of the Board of Assessors in the future with respect to this particular issue, I frankly think that's a discussion to have with that at that point.
My only concern is, if I do something that puts me in a situation where I have to recuse myself with the assessors, there's only 3 of us, and,
There's still two makes the quorum.
yeah.
So you're still okay. So to that point, I can see, as you mentioned on the plan board, so I'm a voting associate.
Right.
So I'm kind of one step back.
Yeah.
So I could see, Michael, for example, something starting here, and outside from tonight, just any old application starting tonight, and potentially going to the planning board. Now, where I am a voting associate, in that case, obviously, I wouldn't step up and I don't need special permits anyway, potentially. Would I even not want to comment? Kind of like really take a full step back?
If the public hearing is closed and the decision is rendered, you're fine to comment.
Okay, but during the public hearing, no.
During a public
Okay,
hearing, no,
got it.
and during the deliberation for a decision, no.
Okay, so only
Once the
once,
decision
before it opens and once it's decided. Got it,
the decision
okay.
is made, you're clear.
Perfect, thanks.
So I don't know, does that mean I should speak on this or not?
I think you're fine. I mean, I'm speaking from the zoning board perspective, like that you should and you're encouraged to, et cetera. How that might affect the board of assessors, I think is a question at that point. For them to be perfectly honest. But if our matter is closed and then something comes before them, like that might give you the break to be able to.
Because it's closed here anyway.
Yeah. So, well, it's 7:13 by my computer, so I'm gonna run with that. So, why don't we have just a couple minutes to just take a look at the minutes, that are before us, which are the minutes of June 1st. So, excuse me, if anyone has any, edits, starting on either pages 1 or 2, please, speak up.
All right, Tom, it's looking on page 2. The fourth, this sentence of, if the department may ask for clarification, and then it should be different features on the plan versus feature.
Any other edits on pages 1 or 2? On page 3, the third paragraph, the second sentence, I think there's a word missing. Michael Slagle stated at 900 square feet maximum under recent stable. I think something
Is the
is the maximum.
maximum.
Okay. And then the next paragraph, Leonard Golder, stated that he finds that the proposal could satisfy the requirements of a variance.
Yeah.
Anything else on page 3? All right. With that, now saying my computer, so I push that one as far as I can. So with that, I think we're going to proceed now to our public hearing. We'll return to the minutes when we are done. So with that, I will call the public hearing for Zero Grade Road to order. We have representatives of the applicants. Yes?
Yes.
Okay. Before we get started, I'll entertain a motion to waive a reading of the notice.
I make a motion that we wait for the reading of the motion. Sorry. Right, I'm not, public, notice of public hearing.
Okay, we have a motion, we have a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor of waiving a reading of the notice? Okay. The motion passes. So to get started, welcome. We will begin by turning the floor over to the applicant to provide your presentation. We've obviously received your application as well as various pieces of correspondence. I encourage the members and the associate members to ask questions during the applicant's presentation. For the applicant's benefit, I would note that any individual comments or any questions that get asked by members should not be construed as anyone having made a decision or reached a determination. The only decision that has any binding effect is obviously after the hearing is closed, once we deliberate and once we actually formally vote. At a certain point, we'll pause. I will open it up for any public comment, beginning with anyone who might be in the room or anyone who might be on Zoom. One thing to note is if there is any public comment, those comments are directed actually to the board, not to the applicant. So to the extent that you wish to respond, you're welcome to. If you don't want to respond, even if it's a question, you absolutely don't have to. The only thing I will warn you though, is that if we like the question, we can certainly turn it around and adopt the question and then ask it ourselves. But we've had plenty of applicants who I offer the floor, they have no comment, they'd rather not respond, and we simply move on. After that, we'll certainly continue to have some back and forth. And then once the board is satisfied that we've received all the information that we need to, we will close we'll take a vote to close the hearing, at which point no further information will be provided. We'll deliberate and then render a vote. Render a decision after a vote. I cannot guarantee, and in fact it is likely that this will not reach a final written decision tonight. And if it does continue, it would most likely continue to our next scheduled hearing, which is August 3rd, which is in about a week and a half. So with that, I will turn it over to the applicant, but I'm going to do something a little unusual, which is to start with a question before I let you talk, which is just for our own clarification. Is this an appeal of the zoning, of the building commissioner's decision? Is it a request for special permit? Is it a request for a variance? Or is it a combination of some or all of those things? And by the way, there's no wrong answer from your all's perspective. I just want to make sure we're clear to start. Yes.
Yes, my name is Gordon Shaw. I'm the former president of the Lions Club. We have with us the president of the Lions Club, Nick Messides, and two other members of the club here, Paul York and my neighbor Phil Belts. So we go a Lions Club. So to answer your question, it's all three.
Okay.
It's all three. And call it contingency, call it, if one doesn't allow us to proceed, then the other two we would like to consider.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure because there were pieces going in different directions. So I just wanted to make sure before we got started. Also because it is all three, we will have to actually technically issue decisions on all three, as opposed to one sort of aggregate decision. So just from a procedural standpoint, everyone knows that there's going to be more paper than we normally have. So with that, I'm going to stop talking and I'll turn the floor over to you all.
Okay, I just need one more thing.
Oh, sure.
Does anybody know if there's a Kleenex box around? I'd like to.
So he does that. Can you just?
Wait, I don't know why my nose is running right now.
That's okay.
My nerves, I don't know.
So an appeal of
Allergy, hay fever.
What's that?
Hay fever.
Ragweed season.
It comes early. I have it.
It's a little early for me, right?
Request for
Ragweed's usually
application for
August,
a
because I'm
variance
ragweed and goldenrod.
and
Yeah.
application for a special permit.
And the cease and desist was too.
I should have brought some to the.
Correct.
Oh,
We're
thanks,
not doing
thanks,
the
Michael.
sign.
We'll have to talk about that.
Yeah, that.
Yeah.
Questions.
That's right.
Alrighty. I'd like to start off, by having our president, our current president, Nick Messides, introduce us.
Hi, I'm Nick Messides, born and raised here in Stow. I've seen me around over the last 40 to 50 years. I'm joined here, like, you met Gordon, our immediate past president, former current vice president. Paul York, also an alumni with me. He is the treasurer, he'll be submitting the taxes, and
Treasurer in training.
and Phil Belt, he's on our board. And I'm gonna hand it over to Gordon to proceed with that.
Okay, yeah, this started, actually at the beginning of the year. We inducted a new member in December of last year. His name is Caesar Nava. And he's the owner of the food truck in our topic here. And we had some discussions in January and February about using his food truck on our property. For two reasons. One, it was a good location for him to sell. Okay, and since he's a member of the club, wow, okay, it's not being used, our property is not being used on a regular basis, except for special events. So that was, that was the first consideration. The second one was he says, you know what, I'll sign an MOU with the club. And I will, in that MOU, make certain commitments. And one of them was he would provide the club with $400 per month to submit to our charitable budget, and more specifically to the portion of the budget that would go back to the town of Stow. Okay, so we thought that was a pretty good idea, kind of a win-win, if you will. And after that, we had a little bit of time until we were able to finalize and review as a club that memorandum of agreement, which we signed and notarized, and should have been part of the package that you folks reviewed. Okay, so that was in April, and after that, I had discussions with Frank, the head of the building department, because in his opinion, we were in violation. Once we started doing the food truck sales, that we were in violation. And he sent us a letter of stop and desist. Okay. And so we came to the town and asked the town, is there anything we can do to appeal this? And so after that, we submitted our appeal, finding out all the things that we could do to appeal that cease and desist order. And that's why we're here tonight, because we submitted our appeal package, and you folks have commented on it. And Michael, thank you for doing what you've done to help us along the way here.
Okay, can I step in here for a second?
Sure.
Yeah. First of all, thank you so much for your time, your effort, your review. We've been established since 1965, before I was born, and we are a nonprofit organization. Any money that we take in, we don't go back into the community, whether it's for a scholarship, whether it's for assisting the poor, and of course, for our primary pillar is to fight blindness and to help the blind, which is, we are known as the Knights of the Blind. So you might see a lot of our boxes around town, we collect glasses, everything we do, all the time we spent is not for us, right? It's for the community. We give our time, we give our money back to the community. What we're requesting here today is an exception or a variance to use our property to serve the community with some food, and to use that money to give it back to the community.
Do you have that handout with you, like the work that we do?
Yeah.
If anyone would like to take a look at the list of things that we do as an organization, so we have a printout.
Have some printouts on some of the charitable things that we've done. We've had food trucks on that property in the 70s and 80s. When I was a kid, I would go to fairs. They would have fairs there. I must have been 6 years old.
Oh, could I get one too?
I'm so sorry.
No worries.
We only made 6 copies, I'm sorry.
No, that's all right.
I can get you those.
We'll share, that's fine.
And we're curious if our prior use of food trucks also predated the food truck statute.
Yeah. So, I'll continue, if that's okay. The Lions Club is more than just the Lions Club within the town of Stow. Okay, the Lions Club was founded back in the 20s. And it's been ongoing and growing as an organization since that time. One of the big changes that was made just a few years after the organization started was the call by Helen Keller, okay, who at the time recognized the basic premise of the Lions, which was to serve and help the community. And so she came to the leadership of the Lions Club and said, we would like the Lions Club to be our white knights for blindness and all disabilities, but primarily for blindness. So that's why, as Nick mentioned, that's our basic pillar of how we serve. We serve the blind in as much capacity as we can. And you'll see that we do donate to many organizations locally that are affiliated with serving the blind. So that is a big deal for us. The rest of the things on there are associated with a combination of work we do with the Lions Club International, which is our organization as it exists internationally. There are 1.4 million lions around the world in Lions clubs in almost every country. Okay, so we're part of a very large, probably the largest charitable organization in the world. So we're part of that, and we're a club within a town in Massachusetts, in the United States of America, in the world. Okay, so that's kind of how it breaks down at the different levels. I won't go into any more details than that, but locally, as Nick was saying, we support not only the town of Stow, but the surrounding towns. Bolton, for example, only has 2 or 3 members in their club, their Lions Club. So when they need help, we go over and help them in their needs for charitable events, which that's our main function, is to put on an event where we can collect charitable dollars.
I think what Gordon's saying is, to get to the heart of what I think he's trying to get at, is our slogan is 2 words. We serve.
Right. We serve, and we serve our fellow Lions clubs. We serve our communities. We serve beyond our local communities.
And here we're asking to serve tacos.
Yeah, I don't want to burn the meeting with too much of our history, but, yes, we have a worldwide presence, and, locally, there are towns that have either no members or just a few members that we support, and that includes Maynard. Hudson, as far as I understand it, has a few members. Marlboro is a club that we affiliate with all the time. They're a very large club. So there's a mixture of all different size clubs in the area. Okay. The second thing we'd like to talk about is the fact, and I didn't mention it, but I'll restate it, that we've been using the field there, the Lions Club field, since it was purchased in 1978. And I think that was in the documentation you probably received. The deed shows that it was purchased in 1978. And again, you know, throughout that time period, all kinds of events, including like the circus used to be held at our field. I certainly wasn't part of the club at that time, but all kinds of great events have been held as fundraisers throughout the years. The other thing that I wanted to say is regarding the building department. I wanted to, since they initiated the cease and desist, I wanted to say that we really have no issue with the building department, okay, or the building commissioner. But we have obviously appealed his decision on the grounds that it should be allowed. Okay.
We're volunteers. We're not doing this professionally. We appreciate everyone's guidance and support. We recognize we probably batted out of order in this situation, and we're appreciative for your guidance and support through this process.
And we have received from Frank and especially Michael tremendous support from the town. So we're very appreciative of that. The one thing that I'd like to emphasize as part of the introduction is that we know that the town believes the use of the property predates the town's adoption of the prohibition of food trucks. Okay, because that went into the bylaws after our club was established in 1978.
65.
I'm sorry, 65.
78, 65.
Where the food trucks in the zoning district, you know, were not, or in that bylaw, said to be non-conforming. So therefore, we consider that to be part of our logic for requesting this special variance, special permit. And if it turns out that the board here cannot make a finding on the fact of pre-existing non-conforming, then obviously we've also issued a request for variance. Okay. So, and then another thing to emphasize is we consider the presence of the food truck on our property as temporary. And that was one of the comments that was made on our narration, our narrative. And yes, we do consider it to be temporary. And it should be considered that it's not a permanent structure. It's not something that's there permanently. So we want to emphasize that as kind of a logical point. I did the calculation, okay, for the amount of time that that truck, on average, and this is an approximation, is there in our field over the last 3 months. And it's somewhere in the order of 88 hours out of a 168-hour, 7-day week. Because that food truck every night or every other night at a minimum, has to go back to a base station to clean in accordance with the Neshoba Board of Health, to fully clean itself, restock, and, make itself in accordance with the Board of Health laws. Okay, so considering it's there, maybe at the most 16 hours out of a regular work week day, okay, and has to go back to its base station. That's how I came up with the calculation. Plus, on the weekends, for the past 3 months, that food truck has been in other towns.
So I think
So-
Gordon's
So,
trying to
what I'm trying to say is that, when you do the calculation, it is a temporary usage. Almost 50% temporary. All right? So that's what I'd like to emphasize. Now, there have been a number of documents that have been forwarded to me, which are comments, that contain comments from the various organizations within the town of Stow. And we have responses basically to some of those comments, most of them, that I would like to request at this point, I've been given time to go through the list of our responses when it fits in with the normal procedures.
Sorry, just to respond to that point. That's something that we can take in, as I noted at the opening, because it's unlikely that we're going to issue a decision tonight. This will likely have to continue to August 3rd. We can definitely take that into consideration about whether or not we choose to keep the public hearing open or not, which is a very common practice. If we do, then certainly you have the right and the ability to provide additional information, whether it be in writing or further comment, on that evening. If a majority of the board votes to close the public hearing this evening, that would obviously cut things off and we wouldn't be able to provide anything. But if the public hearing does stay open, you can certainly provide any sort of supplemental response materials that you would like.
Great, I have that in writing here, I have a few copies of it, so.
You already have
I have
responses?
a written document here.
Oh, you can provide it to us and, we can certainly review it either tonight or in the course of time. So yeah, just provide that to Mike.
So if you permit me to go through it, I will give copies that the board here can have in hand as I go through it.
If we could have copies now, that'd be great.
Okay, take all your copies. This one.
Yes.
I think I have, there's, I think there was one more, was in one of the packages here.
I mean, we can share, as long as Michael gets like one official version, that's really kind of,
There's a copy,
we have another, we can, yeah, so.
And the first part of it is what I just went through in my introduction. Okay, and the rest of it is on that note of what I've done.
in a high-level summary. We appreciate what both the police department and the fire department commented. We hope they've enjoyed some of the fare there as well. Regarding the Board of Health's comments, as always, we're happy to comply with them and to work with them in any way that reaches their standards.
And I should say that, the zoning, just so you all know, the zoning board, we obviously have our particular lane. If other boards, commissions, departments, whatnot, they have their lanes, and if they want to choose to take an action or not take an action, that's certainly within their discretion. It's definitely not unusual for, one to go first, the other one to go next, or however it might be. And so we obviously appreciate their comments, and we'll certainly take them into consideration to the extent that they're applicable. But the Board of Health has its own jurisdiction. We try not to get into their lane, and they try not to get into ours. but we also appreciate the responses as well.
And one additional comment, I believe the signage that we had, up previously is now, withdrawn. And it's been taken down, so.
That's addressed in that document.
Okay, that's great, because I know there was, I had a question about
It's
that.
already down, so if we
Okay.
wanna, we can have that conversation later for the future, but let's keep those separate for today.
You were looking at me as if you had a question to ask, so I was gonna say.
I was gonna ask as soon as we
Go for it,
you
yeah.
ask,
Yeah,
you know, for participation from
kick things off.
the board. First of all, you people do wonderful work. I've known you people and the organization for many years. In fact, I wanna find out where I can throw some of my old eyeglasses because
Yes.
I can help you as a neighbor,
That's
so.
a very important thing that we do.
I know.
We very much appreciate it.
A couple of questions. One is, Caesar, pays $100 a week to the Lions Club. The other money, does that go to him personally? Is that part of his
Yes.
business?
Yes, it's part of his business, yes.
The other thing is, in terms of continuous use of food trucks, you know, over the years, do you have something that you could document, like kind of a history or chronology in which you could show how often there have been food trucks in use?
Yeah, sure, we can take that action, and it implies, probably an approximation, but I have to talk with some of our, original
Our founding members. Yeah.
To get something more accurate than, right off of the information I have, but, we can take that action.
Because, you know, with the statute, with the special permit, it says, you know, a non-conforming use of, continuous use, so that would get into that issue, that's why I raised that question.
Fine. We'll take that as an action.
Not to focus on what might argue is a technical issue. The building commissioner's cease and desist letter was on April 30th.
Yes,
Your application was filed on June 4th.
yes.
Appeals of an adverse zoning enforcement decision are due in 30 days. This was 35. Do you have any good cause or good reason for why it was not within
Yeah,
30 days?
because, we had a meeting in Michael's office, with Frank, the building, director. And there's an English term, last name. The three of us, and we discussed, what date would be the latest that we could submit the appeal. And, it came up that June 4th was the latest date.
So I would like to comment on that. We discussed filing a use variance in my office. And we also discussed the appeal period, the appeal process for an application. At that time, you didn't know that you were going to do an appeal of the decision, and we discussed filing a use variance instead. So when I gave you that option to file with the board, it was based on our discussion of a use variance, not an appeal of the decision of the building commissioner.
I see.
So I'm sorry if that was not clear, but when we were discussing it, we were talking in depth about the use variance request, not the appeal of the decision.
Yeah, at that time, there was a fair amount of, new learning that I had to, acquire on how this all worked.
Yeah, when we were speaking internally, we believed we were still within compliance.
Yes, so, yeah, we believe we were in compliance because,
Wasn't there a period of time we were waiting for correspondence from Frank or
Uh,
something?
no.
I thought there was,
No,
I thought
no,
there was
there
an
were-
email or letter you were
Well, there
waiting
were a couple of emails from Frank.
Because when you get the
We
letter,
believe
you
we
have
were
the
operating
dates. We
within
didn't get the
compliance.
letter.
And if we're outside of it, we apologize, we thought we were within,
We thought we were.
we thought we were within compliance. So her hearing that we're out of compliance was, unsettling to us, and we do apologize.
Yeah, well, actually, this is the first I've heard of it, so, I apologize.
So in appealing his decision, what are you actually appealing? I mean, what's the, where do you think he got it wrong?
Can I ask one quick question?
Sure.
Just on the basis, it come to our attention, just to us, just curious, was it the building commissioner that just saw it, or was there some sort of neighbor who complained about it?
Oh, you mean what what caused the building commissioner to send a letter out.
Right.
So, can you talk to that?
It was noted in a staff meeting that there was a food truck on the property, and someone asked the Board of Health executive assistant about the permitting for that, because usually we hear about all of that. And she was not made aware of it, so other departments, because we heard of this, looked into the regulations and saw
I
that.
just wanted to see if it was the community.
So I don't know, I don't remember exactly who.
We have had no correspondence from the police or anyone else about a negative interaction.
So sorry.
That's correct.
No, it's a fair question. Go ahead, sorry.
So, yeah, so I mean, again, just trying to understand, what exactly what your challenge is for, or what in his decision, what are the points you are challenging?
Well, the points are that, it's not in compliance with, the bylaws and regulations of this town to have a food truck there on residential property.
Are you saying that's not valid?
I'm saying that's what was implied, yes.
Right, and then you're disagreeing with it. You think you believe food trucks are allowed on residential property. Am I?
Right, and that's another good point. This is a residential property, and, you know, as part of our appeal, we'd like to, use that fact that other residential properties have had food trucks permitted. Not on a continuous basis, not on, which at the time that we were initially thinking about this it wasn't gonna be, temporary. It was gonna be continuous 7 days a week. But I tried to clarify that that's not the case, that it's a temporary usage, so.
Can you give me an example of another residential property that's had food trucks?
No, I can't, but I remember in a discussion possibly with Frank, that he said that there have been. And typically in a residential neighborhood where there's houses on both sides of the street and lots of traffic, that will not be permitted. But there are residential properties that have large frontage areas, for example, where it is allowed.
If I may, to that point, there have been, like, for example, at Russell's, at one point there was, but as you notice, it is no longer there because they were told the same thing, not allowed, and they came off. So just because you may have seen a food truck doesn't mean it was an okay thing, and therefore it has been taken away. So, yeah.
Well, that was really not our assumption.
But you need to be careful that just because you see it once doesn't mean it's been approved and therefore it has been taken out, or a single event could have gotten an event permit from the select board. So just be careful.
Yeah, I don't want to say that I know 100% for sure. I just remember it coming up in a discussion, so I can't state an exact fact there.
Just to make sure I'm clear, you are defining temporary as something that is going to be occurring for at least over a year, but not necessarily every day.
That's correct.
Okay. I guess I would define that as occasional versus temporary.
Okay, that's a good point.
And temporary to me is your past experience where, you know, you go to the select board, you get a special permit from them to do it, you do it for a weekend and it's done for the next year or next couple of years, or whatever.
Well, that's a good point about semantics, yeah. If it's a better usage of semantics, certainly change our wording.
I think you meant in the context, it's not a permanent.
There's no permanent building structure.
Yeah.
So there's a trailer, it's pulled out regularly. So it's not a permanent structure. That's what he meant by temporary.
Yeah.
And we can pull it at any time.
Notwithstanding the Board of Health's sort of requirements and
Yes.
some of that. If the food truck operator wanted to be there the most, you indicated how many hours, you were estimating the number of hours he was there. But I just want to be sure that's based on sort of his choice of when he wants to sell his tacos there versus wherever else he takes the food truck.
Right.
You know, he's dictating based on his own schedule, his own
Yes.
priorities, his
Yes,
business
that's right.
acumen,
And also-
when he's there.
Also requirement to go back to the commissary to clean up the truck, to get rid of the wastewater, to clean up and reload with the food. So they need to leave
For their own operation.
Yeah, that's part of the requirement with the Board of Health of the showboat.
Right. I guess my point though is that the Board of Health has its own limitations, but beyond that, you know, what it sounds like is that there is a maximum amount of days and times that he could be there. But the fact that he's not there for that maximum amount of days and times, that's his choice.
That's
right?
correct.
Based on the MOU, there's no limitations. It's not like you said only
That's
10 to
correct.
2 or something like that.
That's
only 5 days.
correct.
Okay.
That's correct.
That's currently how we have.
Right.
Yeah, and when I stated a number of hours, I want to emphasize that was an approximation based on him being off-site.
On a sunny beach.
No. I can say, I drive by there. If I don't drive by there every day, you know, it's probably is every day, for various reasons. And so I would describe the schedule of when I was personally seeing the truck on the property as mildly irregular. You know what I mean? Like, I can't guarantee driving by that it's like, oh, I know every Monday at 10 he's gonna be there, you know? But there have been, you know, stretches where like, oh, he's there Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and then there might be a few days where he's gone and then he's back. I wouldn't be able to, or the flip side is that there's been other stretches where the truck's been there, but it hasn't been open. You know, I'm sure because of staffing,
Yes.
whatever reasons.
Yeah.
So, it does seem to be somewhat inconsistent.
Well, yeah.
Inconsistent.
Or.
Yes. That's exactly. I think that's exactly how I
In
would describe it.
accordance with his personal schedule, busy schedule.
Right.
Yeah.
Other questions, comments?
Another question, and this is just hypothetical, okay? Let's say if the board said, you know, this is not a permitted use the way it's being operated right now. Would it be feasible to have this truck, in use, you know, like every, you know, like for some, well, I know, like, for example, you do the, flea markets.
Yeah.
And maybe have the truck there, like, for some other, events, like during the course of the year, like, I don't know, like maybe every 2 or 3 months, have the truck there so that it is like,
Yeah, absolutely. We would do that. And we have done it, as a matter of fact.
Yeah.
In the past 3 years that we've had the food truck festival.
Yeah,
He has been part of that every year. Go ahead.
this is one of our ideas that we're trying ways to find passive revenue streams for charity, where putting on an event takes a ton of our effort.
With an aging club.
And because of the way the land's set up, we can't use half of it because there's a public well. The costs, police details, in the end,
We're not making that much on these food trucks.
like the return on the amount of hours of our time and volunteers is less than $1 an hour. Yeah, I mean it's and so we're trying to find how can we use that land to make passive income for charity.
Right. And that's kind of what we wanted to emphasize is a kind of a win-win for the food truck and Caesar and his food truck. And the public getting the benefit of $100 a month of acid.
I think the other thing I'd bring up too, at least from my personal perspective, is I didn't realize that we were zoned residential down there, and I think a lot of the things in the club, like it's
It was a
like,
raspberry farm before we bought it.
yeah, we're not the.
They were taking raspberries and blueberries before, so how did they sell raspberries and blueberries for all that time before we bought it? We thought we were commercial.
Yeah, and I mentioned that because if I think if I'd known that, I would have been like, we gotta go talk to the zoning board before we can do this, because someone can't just, I understand on the rest, I couldn't just put one up on my house.
Yeah. It might have prevented the letter. Letter.
I think you'll find that there's a lot of situations in, especially New England, where businesses, exist, and you go, how in the world is this business in the middle of a residential neighborhood?
Yeah.
And it's because it's been there for a long time, it's residentially zoned, and, it's there because it's just been there.
That's what I think 117 used to go right through there before they redirected 117, and then we're still seeing pavement in the middle of it sometimes, and like I said, we were under the assumption that it was already either commercial or.
Yeah, it's always commercial because it's the
But
office
we-
building and not
We didn't know how to
gas
check.
station.
I'm just gonna pause for a second, just because I have to, just to open it up for public comment. Normally I would begin with folks in the room. We have no one else here in the room. Do we have anyone online?
Members online can raise their hand and we'll call on you.
Oh, there's Dave Gray.
David Gray, would you like to?
Yeah, if you can please state your name, your address, and then we welcome your comment or question.
Yes, thank you very much. It's David Gray at 34 Meeting House Lane, the condominiums here in Stow. And I'm also a member of the Lions Club. And just thinking of the practical considerations that you sometimes make, I would postulate that having the food truck there actually reduces traffic through Stow. And let me explain a little bit there. When the intersection gets completely revised at Hudson Road and Great Road, there's going to be a large construction contingent there, and those guys are going to go someplace for lunch. And they could walk there and they'd be all set. The same is true of the Masters Academy. They've got construction going on there all the time, and it would be very convenient for them just to go into a food truck right there, and it would reduce traffic in the rest of the town. But just a brief comment, I just wanted to offer that suggestion.
That's great. Thank you, Mr. Gray.
Thank you.
For folks online, any other public comment? If so, please virtually raise your hand and Michael will call on you. Including any of others.
I'm not seeing any others.
No. Okay, great. Thank you. Other questions, comments from members of the board?
So I just want to make sure, clarification. So in the memorandum of understanding, there is no restriction that was put on the operation of the business from your side. Is that correct?
Correct. It's a 1 year of understanding, intentionally to have an expiration of 1 year where we can modify things if we need to.
Okay. And would the Lions Club be willing to modify?
Yes.
Yes, it's required.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
All right. We have someone online who is raising their hand.
JC Styles, if you would like to unmute yourself, you can provide a comment.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes. Hi, how are you? If you can please state
Good,
your
how
name
you doing?
and address.
Yeah, hi, Janet Stiles, 58 Pine Point Road. I think a couple of points. I think the main issue here seems to be that the use of the private property of the Lions Club, which they've approved using for a charitable purpose. So there are a number of businesses on private property operating in Stow, a number of which you've approved, some of which have just organically developed over the years. So I don't think that should be a barrier. On the other hand, every other point is in favor of proving this. It's a charitable donation. It's a service to the community. It supports independent business. And it's something that the town is always interested in doing. So I think that it should be approved. There also are some considerations whether it even needs an approval because it is a charitable organization and may be exempt for using its property the way it chooses to use it. So thank you for hearing my comments.
Thank you so much. Yes, please.
One point I would just like to bring up to everyone. So Section 3 of the Zoning Act, also known as the Dover Amendment, gives exemptions to zoning. However, charities are not considered to be exempt from the zoning.
Yes.
It is only from any nonprofits. It is nonprofit education. If you are not a nonprofit educational entity, you do not get nonprofit or charitable exemptions from zoning. So it's also religious. There are about 20 different exemptions. They're mostly childcare or accessibility related. But the Zoning Act does not provide any exemptions for just a charity. All other charities must follow the zoning within a town.
So I'd be interested to see that list because we have multiple pillars. I would be curious to see if any of our pillars align with any of those 20 initiatives.
I have reviewed that list, and I agree with Michael's statement. So I don't think there's a need for us to review that.
Okay.
But if you do want to look at it, chapter 40 of the general laws, section 3.
Chapter 40A, section 3.
Right.
Yeah.
I did review that, and I agree with your comments.
The other thing here, just my only comment is, well, you all are a nonprofit entity. It's not as clean as that because you're essentially leasing to a for-profit company. You know what I mean? It's not like all the money that comes in is for you all. And that's not a moral judgment whatsoever at all. I'm just saying that from evaluating the regulations and whatnot, it's not as clean as saying, well, this is a charitable organization that's doing this. It's a little bit more nuanced, I think, than that.
Right.
So,
And I didn't also see, I know you mentioned that we had a copy of that agreement.
oh yeah, it's actually, if you look at the application packet, it's an 18-page PDF. It's on PDF page 12, 13, 14, signature page on 15. It's an 18-page PDF.
David, when you're mentioning about the nuance of the charitable organization, are you referring to the classification of the charity that you may be classed as?
No, what I'm saying is more the fact that you're essentially leasing the property, or a portion of the property. I would say leasing. You're more allowing use of the property to a for-profit entity, which is the food truck. Yeah. As opposed to, and I'm not saying you need to change this, as opposed to having, all of the revenue, go for it. And I'm not saying that would actually change anything anyways, but that's why I think we want to be careful about saying, well, this is a charitable organization that's doing this and raising money. That is true, but there's also a for-profit entity that is there, to be blunt, to make money. Yeah. That they will then keep for themselves.
Right. He's not operating as a.
Correct. Yeah. I'm not saying he's making a ton of money. Yeah. But I just wanted to note that distinction. I'm sorry, I think you were going to make a comment.
Does the board have a definition of continuous? I mean, I looked up the classic definition of continuous in Webster and whatever. Do we use any type of definition of continuous? Because continuous is existed in continuous for over 10 years, where the action occurred without a single pause or break, so without interruption. And I in the case of a food truck being on property, I don't think either of those definitions, the Lions have met either of those definitions for continuous. Do we use something similar? Do we do anything different? Have we had to decide on that?
So generally speaking, the board has not considered continuous use as a definition. What generally happens is you think about how the land is used overall. So for this, if you're using it for a food truck, that there is the acknowledgement that it is leaving site and not operating for a certain amount of time, whether that be for cleaning, restocking food, whatnot. But it does return at a consistent basis of just say 5 days a week. And they have this ability to operate for 52 weeks a year without restriction in this MOU. So the board need to consider, is being allowed to do something every day for 52 weeks a year continuous? And then you can think of it for other businesses, you could be open 2 days a week, but the business is always going to still, the way that that land is being used is still for that business.
So being allowed to and doing can be two different things. If it's allowed to operate continuously, okay. If he chooses not to, or she chooses not to, it doesn't negate or change that continuousness?
So I would take it a step back and ask the board, where in the zoning bylaw does the allowance of a food truck in a residential area, in a residential district, where is that allowed?
Right.
So is it allowed by a special permit by this board? Is it a special permit by the planning board? Is it allowed by right? Is there some other mechanism that allows that?
Because if I remember correctly, prior to the lower village zoning being put in place a year ago, I guess what it was, food trucks weren't allowed in town. With that zoning, it is now food trucks are allowed in town, but only in lower village. So we have taken a step forward to at least allow food trucks in town, but only in lower village. A food truck operator can get a special permit from the board, select board, either an event or whatever, but that tends to be a one-off kind of thing, either a day, a weekend, not a continuous thing. So as of right now, food trucks in town, yes, only in lower village or by permit by the select board. Am I missing another one?
So
And then not in residential at all.
So I can't make the decision for the board.
Right.
But I think you are correct with the special event permits.
Okay.
For the select board, those are typically for one-off events.
Okay.
And the other.
Lower village is the only place.
Is a spot designated for
Right.
food trucks to be established, to have a property that allows food trucks to come on, operate for whatever this permit allows, and then to leave. And then other ones can take its spot.
Okay.
But then it does go into the issue of past historical use, which is why I asked about, a history of, if this was done over many years, because then you get into the issue of, is this an acceptable increase of a non-conforming use, aside from the issue about food trucks?
Yeah.
Specifically.
Yeah, my concern with that though is to the extent that they've had food trucks in the past, and I would distinguish between, say, I think you guys have held like a food truck festival a couple times.
Yeah, we offer food services for the last 30, 40 years. We flipped burgers there for 30, 40 years.
Yeah.
Yeah, but
That was probably before.
It's always
the
been
zoning.
events.
right, it was those events that I presume you received special permit
Yeah,
approval for from the select board,
That's correct.
and so to the extent that there were food trucks there operating as in a similar fashion as this operator was, whether it was 20, 30, 40 years ago, I don't think, I think there's a material and substantial break between that, the fact that they were doing it 40 years ago and saying, well, we did it 40 years ago, therefore we can still do it now, that's a concern, as opposed to, well, we've been doing it for the last, on and off the last 5 or 10, years in a similar fashion as this. So I think there's a distinction there. And I think the example, like, that you talked about outside Lower Village, you know, you get these kind of one-offs. I think we've seen that with like wasn't like the lobster truck at the garden place? Like he was there for like a day.
Yeah.
You know?
Cause traffic
And-
issues.
Yeah, that, I remember there was a nightmare about that, yeah.
Yeah, my kids couldn't get home.
Yeah, right. So, but I think that's probably the example of what you're.
One-offs, yeah.
Yeah, that's right.
The lower village one, is that continuous or is that a special permit at each?
So if you look actually, in the principal use table,
Page 64.
yeah, I think it's footnote 15 or item 15, which is that a special permit and site approval through the planning board is required for mobile food trucks, pop-up markets as an accessory use, and any events must be in compliance with the town, so special event permits, but that's specifically for the lower, village business district, category. So that's where.
How is that different than any other special permit if you still have to go through the review board for a special event permit?
As opposed to like a special permit that comes before us?
Yeah, if we were gonna have a food truck festival again, we would, well, not in front of you, but we would have to go through the select board, we would have to submit a permit as well. It doesn't seem like they still need to do that for the lower village, it sounds like.
Well, I think the difference though there is that, though someone can correct me if I'm wrong, is that this provision would permit a more ongoing use of a food truck in that area. So for example, if the owner of the Dunkin', you know, was like, you know what, we're not using the part of the parking lot in the back, you know, we're gonna put a food truck back there 9 to 5 to sell whatever, you know, they could do so provided that they got permission and certain special permit, you know, site plan approval from the planning board. That's the difference. And then he or she could park their food truck there and do whatever they wanted, subject to other boards or whatever, you know, from the board of health or whatnot. That's the difference between, say, a special event, which, you know, I don't know what the restrictions are in terms of days and times, but, you know, my recollection is that there's a set, you know, it's for 2 days on this weekend, from 9 to 5, you break it down.
More than 35 people.
Right, exactly. Yeah. So that's, you know, so that's the flexibility that was built into the zoning bylaws, whatever it was, recent time, but only in that district. So. Okay. Other questions, comments from the board, whether it be about appeal, special permit, request for a variance. Those are the only options that we have. Of course, it's a little different.
If we had to go through the special event process, what would be the definition of not continuous fee? If we wanted to have a Taco Tuesday, for example, would that be considered continuous?
That's a fair question and one that is outside both my jurisdiction and my knowledge base.
I mean, this is for zoning, right?
Yeah.
So we could do a special permit for Taco Tuesday. We could probably have an event for membership recruiting. We could probably do stuff for other special.
Well, except it's special event permit doesn't come before us. It goes in front of us.
I know, but my concern is it might be considered continuous at that point. If it's
If I can chime in.
Please.
On that. So when a special event permit is filed with the select board, all of the town departments are notified of it and provide comments. The building commissioner is one of the people who receives comments, and if he finds that it would be a continuous use, he would then provide that information to the select board. And then the select board would then review the application and the comments by the building commissioner and render a decision as to whether that is a special event or that would be a continuous use requiring permitting from another board in town. So
it depends.
It depends on exactly what is in that application versus like just an overarching every day or every Tuesday at this time. So.
I mean, I will say for what it's worth, only because I'm now looking at the special event permit regulations. You know, one of the things that, you know, is notable in the application itself is a start date time and end date time.
Oh, yeah.
And so if the start date time is Tuesday at 10 a.m. and the end date time is some Tuesday in the future, you know, it sort of goes against the concept of an end date. You know, whether or not you could have a break. I mean, I've seen fairs and festivals where we're doing a fair this weekend and next weekend,
Yeah.
you know, so I think,
I was focusing on the impact on our special events on a board like this, right? So I'm trying to focus it here.
And I'm assuming the lower village allowance is, I mean, it's commercial. That's zoned commercially.
yes.
It's a business district.
Yes. Yeah, and that's why it's kind of that area.
Treated differently.
Yeah, gotcha.
Yeah. Other questions, comments, pieces of information that you'd be interested in? Any other questions, comments from staff?
Let's see. So we've been going for about an hour, and generally I would just ask, does the board need any other information in order to render a decision? And I will say, if there is something that comes up while the board is discussing and it wasn't brought up during the public hearing, you cannot act on it. So an example could be I've seen it I think it was in neighboring town, they were issuing a decision that talked about parking, and parking wasn't brought up during the public hearing, so the applicant wasn't made aware of that being an issue and something that they conditioned. So if there's anything about the use or any of the other zoning regulations, now is the time to bring it up or to request the applicant to present more information out of either now or at a later date.
To that point, let me ask kind of a clarification or clarifying question. So the property that we refer to as the Lions Field is residential and conservation? It's a dual recreation.
Conservation, recreation.
So right now, the food truck is located on the part that's residential. Is there any, if that food truck should be able to be, and I'm not saying it is, should be able to be located on the recreation conservation, is that okay, or is it still no, not okay because it's outside of Lower Village?
So for that, looking at the table of principal uses, in section 310, on the row for mobile food vendors, I believe there's an N for the recreation conservation district and an N for the residential district.
An N?
N.
N, okay.
For no.
Yeah, the lower village is the only place where it's allowed.
Okay.
So-
Anyway, so.
Moving the vehicle, the food truck, or placing it elsewhere on the site does not necessarily solve the issue.
Okay.
We also have to have a perimeter around
right.
the wells. That's what is.
And that's why I said I didn't think it was possible, but I wanted to make sure that it wasn't an option. Or that option didn't make a difference. Okay.
Where's the break between the residential and the recreational?
It's 100, is that the well?
It's 200 feet. No, the recreational area, as far as I understand it, it's an area 200 feet from, the road.
Okay.
Okay. Anything beyond that?
And is the parking in the residential area or the,
Yes. It's
so everything related to the food truck is in the residential area?
That's correct.
Okay.
As currently proposed, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I think, if I could, I'd like to, since you're on that topic, mention something else about the parking. This is not stated in writing, but it was a discussion that I did have with Frank Ramsbot. And he allowed us to continue after a cease and desist, mainly for the reason that he felt it was a safe area for cars and trucks entering into our parking area and exiting out of it, because it's such a large area that was one of his primary concerns, the safety, okay, of vehicles coming in and out of the food truck parking area. So I just want to make that statement, which I think it's important that Frank felt we could continue until the decision of this appeals board, because it was safe.
You know, as I've driven by there at night from time to time, I've seen these semi-trailer trucks parked over there, you know, resting before they get onto 495.
Yeah, and that's another thing.
Yeah, and people
That
bring
brings
their
that struggle
dogs.
to,
Yeah.
because we are a private property, but we are, we want to serve the community. And part of serving is things like that. If a truck or a car needs to pull over, we don't want to have do not trespass signs up there. Or somebody wants to have a picnic on the lawn. We don't want to have do
Fishing
not
on the river.
trespass.
Private residential, but we allow it.
And our two
But-
our founding members, who purchased the land, they specifically, when they got it, they talked about that, and they said, we're not putting up no trespassing signs. It's private property, but if you wanna come use it, it's for the town, so.
Then just to follow up on your point for the recreation conservation district, so 311 of the bylaws actually goes through all the different uses for that particular area. There is actually one of the uses does allow for the sale of certain food products, but it's tied to farming, and specifically, you know, the idea is essentially, the irony is, of course, if you kept it as a raspberry or blueberry field and then wanted to sell them,
Right.
like that actually would be.
We still gonna, they're growing back there.
I'm sure, yeah, I'm sure there are, but like the owner operator, for example, of, you know, which kind of makes sense, is the idea is that like if you're growing food in a recreation conservation area that's yours, you should be able to sell it as well. So that's the carve out. Tacos, unfortunately, do not grow naturally on property.
And I saw a note that parking is allowed year round, correct?
It's tougher in January.
On
Yeah,
our field, yes.
yeah.
But we don't plow it when there's snow, but
but that,
otherwise, yeah,
that's like
it's plowed.
accepted, so, cause that, I feel like stands for a lot.
Yeah, how many cars do you, I mean, how many parking spaces do you have there for the food truck?
Well, when we have a big event, and we have a layout, I think JT may actually have a drawing of the layout of where we laid out the parking lot.
I wasn't sure whether that was an accurate count or not.
So, well, it was an accurate count, because we had to draw the lines and that drawing, that particular drawing, I drew to scale.
Okay.
So, I believe there were about 30 to 40 parking spots that we allocated in that area.
Okay.
For automobiles, not for trucks.
Right. I guess I have a question for the board or for Michael. You know, when we're talking about variances, and I'm reading here, historically, the board has found that use variances are not allowed in Stow historically, but does that preclude us from allowing a use variance just because historically it has not been allowed?
Well, I mean, I think as we've talked about before, every application, you know, is treated sort of on its own. There's no kind of precedence that's created, a board last year can make a decision and, if it's similar facts in a different property, this board can certainly make a different decision. That's, I think, the extent of how I would put that. If Michael wrote it to the extent that he wants to comment on it, I'll give him the floor, but otherwise that's how I would respond.
And do we allow on a residential property somebody to host an event and charge for it typically?
I mean, that would fall under the special event regs,
I guess I'm trying to put my mind around.
Typically, special events, when it comes before the board, there's a lot of variation. We have the beer fest coming up. And they have an admission of $10. It's a suggested admission. That's the way they put it, but it is a fee. And then there are, after that, there are costs for purchasing beer, whatever other food and wares are there on site. So we do have special event permits that come to us
that's on a residential. No, right.
No, it's
That's private property.
I think I was just trying to, because to some degree, the precedent here has been, it hasn't been treated as straight residential. We're bothered in something a little different.
I'd like to address that question, because every time we have on our residential property had a special event, we, not knowing it was residential, but we assumed, I guess we could assume that someone in the town would have known. We submitted the permit or the application for the permit, and it was always approved. For these on-site things, we submitted applications for permits for other things that have not been approved.
Right. I think that's where I'm saying it's been, the use has been not considerable residential.
Correct. It's a residential field, so that answers your question.
Historically, yes, that is correct.
Historically, anytime we ask for a special event there, it has been approved.
There's been car shows, there's been flea markets, and we would cook during those flea markets.
There's been plant, garden events and sales.
Jeepney, I think they had a Jeep.
They had a fundraiser to do closest to the pin, I think you had one year, right? Just different ways to raise money.
Right, so just establishing.
Every one of those required an application for special permit.
And we get special applications for, residential's use on special occasion to put up a tent and they can use it, field with a small gathering of like their family, right? Little stuff like that. And we serve.
I think one thing we also want to be careful of is a special permit is not necessarily a special permit. And so like a special permit for us is different than say a special permit that say the select board would issue. You know what I mean? And so
that's why it's delineated as a special event permit versus a special
permit, right?
Event because singular.
Right, because it's a
because
specific purpose.
it's a one.
I think it's 100 people.
Yeah, sorry, not stating that completely.
Yeah, no, that makes sense,
And I think there is a fundamental difference which makes this request very different and not necessarily easy to I mean, basically this bylaws are very clear, so we need to consider this carefully.
All right. Any other questions or comments for right now? No. Okay. Sorry. Becker.
I received an email a while back to Valerie because I was talking to her about use variances. And in her response, she said, I looked into variances a bit so we can respond to any questions regarding any applications. To confirm, use variances are not allowed unless expressly permitted by the zoning ordinance or bylaw, which is Mass General Law, Chapter 40A, Section 10. Stow's zoning bylaw does not include language to allow a use variance, and the courts have held that a permit granting authority is not required to approve a use variance, even if the three requirements are all met. Applicants aren't entitled to a variance.
But allowed, is that right?
They're not entitled, allowed, same thing.
You know what I mean, like we don't have to grant it, like what I was reading.
Yes, you don't have to grant a variance.
Okay.
But
You still
in
can,
order
or you cannot.
in order to grant a variance, you need to hit the threshold of, does the zoning bylaw permit a use not allowed? So if you go to the table of principal uses and you look at the mobile food vendor, anywhere with an N, that means it's not allowed.
Okay.
Is there somewhere in the bylaw that allows some way for a mobile food vendor to be on a residential property? And then it would have to meet the three additional requirements to grant a variance, which are soil, shape, topography, hardship. So,
And I believe that section of chapter 48 was recently slightly modified to allow for more flexibility around use variances, but only to expand housing.
yes, I'll put a pin in that.
Yeah, I know.
That there has been recent changes to Mass General Law,
Yes.
but we will discuss that at a future meeting. I just don't want anyone to read that and get confused.
Yeah, but it's part of the general sort of attempts to increase housing.
And so the more, I'm just trying to get my head around the process there. So if they're going typically before the select board for event permit and such, is that more the kind of route that this, not should go because it's here based on the appeal of the decision, but would that be the way to somehow bring it into, because it feels like it's some different piece than typical.
What they're looking for is a permanent solution.
Okay.
The special event will not give them a permanent solution. They'll give them a one-time solution. So special event will not work for them.
I see. Okay. And that's okay.
I mean, it would if they wanted to be there for 2 days and then leave. So, I mean, this is, I'll make this my last comment, is that what's unique about this matter is that it's almost like we've got both the beginning and the end at the same time. What I mean by that is that it's the combination of hey, we want to do this food truck, we're going to ask for a special permit or a variance before it even happens. And then we've also got the other piece of it's already happened, the zoning enforcement officer has essentially already made a decision that they're trying to appeal. And we're going to have to answer it from both ends, though theoretically, and this is probably, you know what, actually I'm not going to talk to that because that's more appropriate for deliberations. But we can talk about it then, we should be focusing on facts. So anyways, on Michael's point, we've been going for quite a while. I guess I would ask if there's any final questions or comments that folks have now. And if there isn't, then we can certainly continue this to a week and a half from now when we have our next meeting and try to wrap things up then, to the extent that you all want to submit any sort of additional information in between then and now, you're welcome to. But I will open the floor for any members or for staff to ask any other questions or make any other comments.
I guess one last thing, is there anything you can, or any points you'd like to make in terms of why you think Frank made the wrong decision in terms of for your appeal? Just anything to help us understand where he made a mistake in his decision.
To issue this cease and desist email. I don't think he made a wrong decision. I think he knows what the in general, what all the bylaws are about, and the fact that we weren't meeting the criteria. I was there when he discussed it with Michael, so, I was convinced that, we needed to do something to appeal that letter of cease and desist. So what we came up with was what you've seen in front of you, the appeal, documentation. But there's nothing specifically, that we can say we believe he did anything wrong.
Right. So you're basically appealing it because you feel that you have a history of doing these events. Is that a fair statement?
Well, yeah, I think we're asking for, a variance here because we have been a part of this town, our organization, since 1965. And we've contributed a lot of good feedback to the town in terms of charity, etc. Working with people in the town. If somebody needs their backyard raked in the fall, for example, we'll be out there doing it. We serve. So
We helped start the Spring Fest.
right. So we feel that it's appropriate for us to request an appeal because this food truck is part of our work, our attempt to contribute to the town and serve the town. That's our main thrust here.
In the last, I said this before, but I'll reserve the right to say it again, but this is now my last comment. I don't want anyone to take the impression away that any comments or questions tonight has anything to do with the mission of the organization, which of course is extremely admirable and whatnot. Unfortunately, the questions before us tonight are somewhat narrow. It's really, that's our focus. Like with any other applicant, it's never any decision we render, any comments we make or questions that we ask is never, with respect to the, character of the individual that's coming before us, or the intent of what they're trying to do. Okay. With that, I will entertain a motion to continue.
I make a motion to continue the meeting to August 3rd, specific time, or?
Do we have the applicant's permission before making this motion?
Oh, I'm sorry, you're right, I apologize. Do we have the permission to continue the hearing until August the 3rd?
Absolutely. Yeah.
And if there's a time for this, it would be 8 o'clock. Based on the current schedule.
8 o'clock. All right, we have a motion. We have a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor of continuing the hearing to August the 3rd at 8 p.m.
Aye.
And that motion passes. Thank you very much. Again, as the hearing is still open, we can still entertain additional facts and information.
Thank you.
Absolutely. And we'll see you all on August 3rd at 8 o'clock.
Yes, thank you for your time.
Thank you, John. Can I say one thing? I'd like to see them.
So, before the motion.
Continuing, I was just.
That's why I say, any discussion?
Okay. I know, we go very quick.
I'm sorry.
So I'll leave all this documentation.
Yes, please. Yes, and we'll
And if you
continue
want
the record.
electronic copies of this event,
How are you?
documents, I only have 4 copies.
Yeah, actually, I think it's, email it.
Drop off.
That'd be great. Thank you so much.
Center, there's one.
Wait, he's right there.
Yeah, I'm on the corner of Highland Road.
Guys, sorry, I apologize.
Not right
We should
now. Lenny,
Meetings
not
are
right
half done.
not right now.
I think that you're done.
Thank you.
We'll catch up.
Yeah, okay, sorry. All right, Turning to our more exciting administrative matter, just run through the rest of the minutes, real quick. I think we're on page 4, just revising and reviewing the minutes from June the 1st.
Yes. I believe the public hearing is not for Pine Point Road. I believe it is Pine Ridge Road. So, on page 4, the title heading, but also it needs to change in, page 5. Ernie Dodd moved to grant special permit to, and that needs to be changed, and the one below that as well. Like I said, I live on that street, there is no 4.
Alright, any other edits on pages 4 and 5? Anything on pages 6, 7, or 8? Alright, page 2, actually, page 7. Go to the 4th paragraph. It starts with Michael Slagle. Mike Slagle noted that he had concerns that were related to a discussion the board, I think we're missing the word had. And in that paragraph, the last sentence, at the very end where it says ensure that future conversations are, can we change the word are to remain? Thank you. No additional comments, edits?
Motion to approve the minutes for June 1st as amended.
Your motion?
Second.
Go ahead. All right, okay, we'll give it to JT. We have a motion, we have a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor? The motion to adopt the minutes as amended is approved. Otherwise, there's no correspondence to note outside of the correspondence we received with respect to the public hearing tonight. Otherwise, our next meeting is scheduled for August the 3rd. Michael, would you care to provide us with a very quick preview?
Sure, so at 7:30, there's a special permit to add stairs to deck within the setbacks. And then at 7:45, there is a special permit to allow an accessory apartment, also within the setbacks.
And then at 8.
And then at 8 will be the Lions Club again, continued. Would the board like a discussion on the changes to Mass General Law? Just a preliminary overview of what's going on, or do you want to push that back to September?
Also executive session.
Oh, yes, and then there is an executive session on August 3rd at 7 o'clock.
7 a.m. or 7 p.m. Yeah.
So,
There is,
Deb,
okay.
if you would like to be here 12
No,
hours
thank
early,
you.
we will not stop you. You just may not be able to get it to the building.
Yeah, no.
When is that executive session?
That's at 7.
That's
So right at the beginning.
Okay.
Knowing just a preview of that Mass General Law change, that's not gonna be a quick discussion, I don't think. So I don't know if we should do it on the 4th, on the 3rd, or a different time.
I mean, unless you feel strong on the other, I was thinking also about just pushing it to the next meeting on September 14th.
That's fine.
Okay.
So on to the 14th.
Yeah.
There's no immediate action needed for it.
No, I know, but it's
Yeah,
good for us to
just-
at least just get a
We
quick.
can certainly move it.
Yeah, let's just, let's, for the moment, put it on the 14th. Especially if it's not a wood quiet meeting. We can just focus on that. So, okay.
Michael, are you able, or is the board able to tell me the topic of the executive session? Or do I wait till I get the information?
It's regarding litigation.
Right.
Litigation.
Litigation, okay,
Yeah, and town council will be here.
Town
Okay.
council will be here.
that's plenty.
I-
That's plenty.
Can I assume I know what it is?
Yes, you do.
Okay.
So, and any further discussion would require executive session anyways, so we'll just have to wait. All right, Michael, anything else for you?
That's it.
All right, in that case, unless anyone has anything else, I'll entertain a motion.
So move to adjourn.
Second. We have a motion, we have a second to
We
adjourn
get
the
a
meeting at 8:49. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor? Meeting is adjourned. We'll see everyone in a week and a half.
So soon.